There's a tax you pay every day, even without realizing it. It doesn't appear on your bank statement or your tax return. It's silent, invisible, but it's the one that steals most of people's prosperity. Napoleon Hill called him the invisible foe. This fear infiltrates your choices, sabotages your plans, and weakens your courage. It's like a hidden hand that takes from your hands what you could have achieved. The curious thing is that this tax doesn't depend on laws or governments. It's born within the mind, and, therefore, it's the only tax you can cut yourself, as long as you have the courage to face head-on what you've been avoiding for years. How many opportunities have you passed up because you were afraid of what others would think? How many dreams have you shelved because you believed you weren't ready, or because someone might criticize your decision? Every no you've said to your own life has cost you dearly. Hill observed that the greatest fortunes were not built by people without fear, but by people who learned to act despite fear. The secret is not to eliminate insecurity, but to reduce the power of this invisible tax on your choices. The truth is that fear of criticism has caused more people to fail than any economic crisis, because those who fear judgment never take risks, and those who never take risks never prosper. It's that simple but too powerful to ignore. And that's why this video can be a turning point in your life, because if you identify and cut this invisible tax, you'll reclaim the energy, time, and opportunities that were previously lost to hesitation. Before we begin, I want to know, what fear is weighing most heavily on you today? Leave a comment. It could be the fear of making mistakes, being criticized, or losing what you have. Sharing this can free you and help others who are experiencing the same struggle. Hill observed that many brilliant men didn't become rich, not for lack of talent, but because of a silent cost, fear. This fear doesn't show up in water, electricity, or rent bills, but it weighs even more heavily because it destroys opportunities before they even arise. Fear acts like an invisible thief. It whispers that you're not ready, that you might fail, that you'll be ridiculed. And by believing these inner voices, you pay a heavy price. The life you could have lived is postponed indefinitely. Napoleon Hill called this the invisible tax, a mental toll that consumes energy, time, and confidence. The cruelest part is that you are the one who collects and pays it every day, whenever you let fear decide for you. Think about how many ideas you've had that could have changed your life, but were shelved because fear convinced you to wait. Every project postponed, every conversation avoided, every risk not taken. All of this is lost income. This tax isn't dependent on the economy, inflation, or external crises. It arises within you and limits your potential to prosper. Those who learn to face it discover that true financial freedom begins in the mind. And the key is simple: act despite fear. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's movement amid doubt. Every step taken in this condition weakens the invisible tax and strengthens your identity of prosperity. I want you to reflect. What idea or opportunity has fear been holding you back in your life? Write in the comments. It could be a business venture, a career change, or even a conversation you've been avoiding. Your experience can show others that everyone faces fears, but that they can be overcome. And perhaps by sharing this, you'll take the first step toward eliminating this invisible tax from your own life. Napoleon Hill stated that, of all fears, the most costly is the fear of criticism. This fear paralyzes more people than poverty or illness because it undermines confidence. It makes you give up on taking action before you even try. Many talents remain hidden because someone thought, what if they laugh at me? What if I fail in front of everyone? This inner voice turns opportunities into ghosts and dreams into memories of what could have been. Fear of criticism is the invisible tax that exacts high interest. Every time you remain silent for fear of what others think, you pay a portion of your prosperity. In the end, you accumulate more regrets than achievements. Hill saw this in entrepreneurs, artists, and ordinary workers. Smart people who held back from launching projects, starting businesses, or negotiating better terms simply because they were afraid of hearing no. But here's the paradox. Those who dare to face criticism end up being remembered as pioneers, because every great idea, at first, always seems absurd to those not yet ready to understand it. I want you to think. When was the last time fear of other people's opinions made you keep quiet? Share in the comments. Your experience might show someone they're not alone in this challenge. The courage to act despite criticism is one of the greatest ways to reduce this invisible tax. When you stand up and take a step, you discover that most of the people you criticize never had the courage to try. And remember, those who judge don't pay their bills. Those who laugh don't build their lives. Those who doubt don't write their future. Only you can decide how long you'll continue to pay this invisible price or whether you'll begin to live freely. Few people realize, but many of the fears we carry aren't even our own. They were inherited. They came from our parents, our schools, our society, and they took root in our minds as absolute truths, sabotaging our freedom of choice. From an early age, we hear phrases like, "Don't speak loudly," "Don't expose yourself," "Better not to take risks." Gradually, these ideas shape behaviors and teach us to seek security, not purpose, stability, not growth. Hill said that the thoughts you accept as truth define your reality, and if you grew up surrounded by people who were afraid of failure, it's natural to have trouble believing you can succeed. But here's the twist: what you inherited, you can also reprogram. No thought is permanent. Every belief can be replaced when you consciously decide what you want to believe from now on. And that's why you're here. Because, deep down, something inside you knows you weren't born to live limited by the fear of others. There's a part of you that wants to break free from this invisible programming and build your own story. If this content is opening your mind and reminding you of who you really are, subscribe to the channel now, leave a like, and share this video with someone who also needs to break free from this limiting mental inheritance. Many people need this message, and perhaps you're the channel to bring it to someone else. Because when one person awakens, they naturally begin to awaken others around them. And now I want to hear from you. What was the most limiting belief you inherited that no longer makes sense? Write in the comments. Your answer could be a reflection for someone who hasn't yet had the courage to question what they've learned. Most people believe that the biggest risk is making the wrong decision, but Napoleon Hill saw the opposite. What silently destroys dreams is the lack of decision, the constant hesitation, the eternal wait for a security that never arrives. You don't need to make a mistake to lose. Just don't act. Time takes care of the rest. While you overthink, someone less prepared but more determined moves forward. And the difference between you isn't in intelligence, but in the courage to try. How many opportunities have you let slip by due to overanalyzing? That idea that seemed good, but you waited too long. The conversation you wanted to have, but put off. The change you knew you needed, but kept putting it off. The cost of not acting builds up over time. Not just financially, but emotionally. You feel like you could have been further along. You know it. And deep down, you carry the frustration of having betrayed yourself once again. Hill said that the universe rewards movement. Every idea needs to be followed by action. It doesn't need to be perfect or grandiose, but it needs to happen. Because it's movement that builds confidence, not the other way around. Waiting to feel confident before taking action is like waiting to learn to swim without getting in the water. It'll never happen. It's the bold step, even if uncertain, that releases energy. And it's this energy that attracts new paths, new people, and new results. The problem is that fear has learned to disguise itself as prudence. It's not time yet. I need to plan better. When I have more money. All these phrases seem wise, but they are mental traps. They are voices of fear disguised as responsibility. And while you convince yourself of this, time passes. Before you know it, you've lost years and opportunities that won't come back. The truth is simple. Those who wait too long lose, and those who take action learn. Have you ever calculated how much you've lost by postponing important decisions? Try adding it up. A project you didn't launch, a promotion you didn't ask for, a business you didn't have the courage to start. The financial cost is high, but the emotional cost is even greater. Because over time, it's not just money that's missing, it's enthusiasm, faith, and inner strength. You start to doubt yourself. And that's the cruelest price, feeling small for having put off so much. Maybe you're right there. You know you need to act, but something's holding you back. It could be fear of failure, fear of criticism, or fear of losing what you've already achieved. But if you look honestly, you'll realize that the biggest risk right now is staying where you are. Because this place of stagnation, which seems safe today, will be unbearable tomorrow. Thriving is an act of courage, and sometimes, a single decision is enough to start over with new energy. Now I invite you to be honest with yourself. What have you been putting off out of fear? What do you know you need to do? But keep waiting for the right moment. Write in the comments. Naming it can be liberating, and it can help others experiencing the same dilemma. Remember, your comment could be the trigger someone needed to take action, and it could also be your own turning point. It all starts with speaking the truth out loud. From this point on, I want you to make a decision. Any decision. But make sure it's aligned with your purpose, because it's action that transforms identity. And a new financial identity is born when you stop running away and start building. The tax of fear only exists when you allow it. And when you act, even trembling, even uncertainly, this tax loses its power, and freedom begins to appear not magically, but as a consequence. There's a type of fear that almost no one admits out loud, the fear of thriving. It may seem strange, but Hill observed it in many people. As they began to improve their lives, something inside them sabotaged the process. It was as if they didn't feel worthy of going further. Their minds sought unconscious ways to stall, and, without even realizing it, these people sabotaged themselves, wasting opportunities, delaying decisions, breaking promises to themselves. This fear isn't born from money itself, but from the change it provokes. Prosperity requires responsibility, positioning, and the courage to separate yourself from environments and people that no longer suit your new cycle. And often, it's easier to stay where you are even if unhappy than to face the pain of growing up. Hill said that wealth is a reflection of who you are willing to become, and this becoming involves shedding old versions of yourself. That's why so many people live in cycles: win, lose, start over. Because, deep down, they believe that growing too much is dangerous, that they'll be criticized, rejected, or have to give up something important. And to avoid this risk, they stay in the almost. They work hard, but don't overstep their bounds. They dream big, but sabotage themselves in practice. The fear of thriving is subtle but powerful. It acts disguised as humility, caution, and common sense. But it's fear. Hill taught that the mind accepts as truth whatever you repeat emotionally. If, when imagining a prosperous life, you feel guilt, anxiety, or fear, guess what your subconscious will do? It will avoid that scenario at all costs. It will find ways to keep you in the familiar zone. No matter how much you say you want to prosper, if deep down you fear it, your mind will protect you from what you're asking for. The solution begins with awareness. You need to observe your own reactions. How do you feel when you think about making a lot of money? When you imagine being recognized, applauded, desired? If something inside you is blocking you, that's the signal. It's not the external world that's impeding your evolution, it's an internal emotional break, activated by beliefs that may not even be yours. Hill said that wealth is a natural consequence of those who feel comfortable with being prosperous. Therefore, the work isn't just external. It's not enough to plan, execute, and sell. You need to reprogram. Change your self-image. Stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who is. Because you don't attract what you desire, you attract what you believe you deserve. And as long as your internal image is stuck in scarcity, you'll always hit the same ceiling, no matter how hard you try. Now be honest with yourself. Is there a part of you that's still afraid of thriving? That believes if you grow too much, something bad might happen? Write in the comments. When you bring this fear into the light, it loses its power. And maybe your courage will inspire others to do the same. Because deep down, we all want to grow, we just need to remember that we have permission to. The time has come to break this invisible pact with scarcity, to cancel the fear that keeps you in the almost. Prosperity lies on the other side of your inner permission. And Hill once said, you can be anything you decide to be, as long as you're willing to pay the price. And the first price is letting go of fear. Because those who have the courage to prosper find doors where before they only saw walls. Now that you've identified the invisible tax, it's time to learn how to eliminate it from your life. And the first thing you need to understand is, this tax isn't paid with money. It dissolves with decisions. Every courageous choice you make weakens this mental system that imprisons you. It's as if you stop feeding an inner shadow. The more you act with purpose, the less room fear has to exist. Hill taught that all change begins with an act of will, and that willpower needs to be nurtured daily with clarity, repetition, and action. That's why he so strongly advocated the practice of autosuggestion. Repeat, visualize, act, not once, but until your mind accepts the new reality you're building as truth. This process is simple, but it requires consistency. Without it, the old pattern returns with a vengeance. It's like renovating an old house. You need to tear out the bricks of limiting beliefs and replace them with new foundations. This takes work, yes, but it's the only way to build something solid and prosperous. And the more you repeat this structure, purpose, positive thinking, determined action, the more the invisible tax loses its meaning. It doesn't magically disappear. It disappears with the disciplined repetition of a new identity. Start small. Set daily goals. Write your purpose in one sentence. Repeat this every day. Visualize what you want to achieve. And, most importantly, take action. Make a call. Send a proposal. talk to someone who can help you. Every small step validates the new version of yourself that's emerging within you. And little by little, fear turns into confidence, doubt turns into impulse, and procrastination becomes action. This is the secret behind people who thrive even in difficult times. They're not just lucky, they're more aware. They understand that the external world reflects what's happening inside their minds. And so they care for their minds with the same care they would a $1 million investment, because they know that a well-trained mind generates returns. But a mind left to its own devices becomes the greatest saboteur of your wealth. If this content is helping you to recognize invisible patterns that were hindering your financial life, take advantage and subscribe to the channel, like it, and share this video with someone who also needs to reduce this mental tax. The more people wake up to this, the stronger this collective transformation will be. Now, answer honestly. What will be the first decision you'll make today to weaken your fear? Write in the comments. Sharing this commitment publicly could be the missing step in making it a reality. And, as we've seen, every transformation begins with a choice, however small. From here, we'll enter the most profound point of this video, the climax of this entire journey. Because fear isn't just an obstacle, it's a sign, a calling. And when you understand what that calling means, everything changes. In the next chapter, we'll reveal the exact point where fear transforms into power. Stay with me. We've reached a crucial point. Fear isn't just an enemy. When understood, it becomes a powerful indicator. Hill taught that fear points you exactly where you need to go. What paralyzes you most is often what would liberate you most. Not by chance. It's there that your mind perceives risk but also potential. Fear, in fact, isn't a blockage. It's a portal. An invitation to cross the boundary you've created for yourself. Have you ever noticed that everything you wanted most was on the other side of some resistance? The difficult conversation you put off that later brought relief. The uncertain decision that seemed dangerous and then opened paths. Fear always appears in moments when you're about to break through a layer of your own identity. That's why it screams. Because your internal system wants to keep you safe even if it costs you your freedom. Hill showed that the most successful men in history felt fear, but they didn't interpret it as a signal to stop. They saw fear as a warning that they were about to grow. And by acting even with their hearts racing, they discovered what they were made of. That's true power, not ignoring fear, but using it as a compass. It points you where you need to act, where you need to mature, where you can truly thrive. That's when the key turns, when you stop running from fear and start walking toward it. This doesn't mean exposing yourself recklessly. It means acting consciously, taking calculated risks, with your feet on the ground and purpose in your heart. Because when you overcome fear, it melts away, and what once seemed impossible becomes natural. Maybe right now you're facing something that's paralyzing you, a project that challenges you, a step you know you need to take, and fear is there, trying to convince you to postpone it once again. But what if, this time, you listened to that voice and said, "Thank you for showing me where I need to grow"? Fear, when embraced, loses its power, and you, when you act even when trembling, gain strength. Hill said that growth is proportional to your ability to act amid discomfort. And this isn't theory, it's practice. Every time you face something that scares you and survive, you expand your limits. You become someone who didn't exist before. And that, in itself, is a form of wealth. Because nothing compares to the feeling of knowing you've conquered yourself. Now, I want to invite you to a practical reflection. What fear are you choosing to transform into action today? Write in the comments. It doesn't have to be something grand. It could be a simple decision, but one you've been putting off for a while. By writing it down, you signal to your mind that you're ready. And who knows, your choice might become the trigger someone else needs to move forward to. Fear ceases to be a prison when it becomes a direction. Prosperity isn't born from the absence of challenges, but from the courage to overcome them. And you've already come this far. That's already a testament to your strength. In the next chapter, we'll tie all this together into a simple, direct, and powerful action plan so that the invisible tax never returns. You've made it this far. That says a lot about your journey. It means there's a genuine desire within you to break boundaries, to live with more purpose, to thrive without fear. The invisible tax Hill warned so often about is real, but now, it's no longer invisible to you. And when something becomes conscious, it loses its power. You're no longer in the dark. You can now see what previously went unnoticed. How much fear has been governing your decisions. But now comes the most important part. What are you going to do with all this? Because knowledge without action is just a distraction. True power lies in transforming what you've heard into action. You don't have to change everything at once. You just need to choose a point, a fear, a belief, and start moving. Life doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence, clarity, commitment, and you've already proven you have that. Starting today, make your mind a protected territory. Don't let old voices, inherited traumas, or other people's criticism dictate your steps. Hill taught that the mind is like a garden. You either cultivate flowers or let the weeds grow. Start cultivating thoughts that propel, not paralyze. Surround yourself with people who add value, and daily nurture the image of the prosperous life you want to build. If you apply what you've learned here, you'll notice real changes in no time. Not because the world outside has changed, but because your attitude has changed. And when you change, everything changes. What once seemed impossible begins to come closer. What once frightened you becomes just another step on the ladder of your evolution. This is what thriving is, continuing to grow even when you're afraid. Now I want to hear from you. What point of this video resonated with you most? What insight resonated with you? Share it in the comments. Sharing this helps cement the learning and inspires others going through the same process. This exchange is part of the healing, part of the reprogramming, and part of building a community that chooses to thrive consciously. And if this video helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're building a library of wisdom based on Napoleon Hill's teachings, adapted to the reality of those who want to grow with clarity, integrity, and purpose. Before you leave, here's an important tip. If you want to understand how fear of criticism is the biggest silent cost of your financial life, watch the next video on the channel. Fear of criticism, Hill's most expensive enemy. It is a direct complement to what we saw here, and will show you how to cut this second hidden tax from your mind. The freedom to live abundantly begins with the decision to no longer negotiate with fear, to no longer accept being small. And if you felt that way here today, then the process has already begun. Thank you for walking with me this far. See you in the next chapter of your journey.